Sierra Leone was once the center of academic excellence for many intellectuals in English West Africa. However, by the mid-1980s, Sierra Leone had become steeped in deep contrasts. In 1991, the Revolutionary United Front launched an attack from the eastern part of the country, igniting one of the world's most brutal civil wars.
I was born in Sierra Leone at the time when we were just about to have independence, and I think for the next 10 years there was a euphoria of post-independence when everybody was feeling great and positive. And by the early 80s, the country was literally bankrupt and becoming an international pariah that nobody wanted to touch. So much dishonesty, greed, educational system was collapsing. Hospitals were falling apart. Nothing seemed to be working. It was not accidental that by early 1990 there were so many people in Sierra Leone, young people, who felt that the only thing left to do is to fight.
What happened in this country was surreal for most of us because it was not our national character to behave that way, or at least that's what we thought.
A kind of highly traumatized period when young people were being placed in positions that they could not imagine themselves to be.
It's a very sad thing to relive or to revisit, considering the atrocities people suffered in this country, the inhuman cruelties that we saw as a consequence of the war. There was no future. It was death galore right across the country. It's a sad thing to relive.
10 years ago, my impressions of Sierra Leone were one of a country that was in a state of limbo, that was sort of readdressing a situation that maybe was not of its own making and trying to find its footing once again.
The legacy of the war was hanging right over our heads. We are not even sure of what to do.
The self-esteem of this nation, from what I knew as a child, has been shattered.
Sierra Leone, after successful elections in 2007, held another round of elections in 2012. Most people felt that this election was going to be the most critical, especially as Sierra Leone was for the first time using a biometric voter system. Given the pattern of violent and hotly contested by-elections, many were convinced that these elections would go down the same path.
Sierra Leone is one of the few countries I know where there is a rally and then somebody throws a rock and hits the head of one of the party leaders and he's bleeding and he has to be flown out of the country. Okay, Sierra Leone is the only country I know so far in recent years where somebody goes and sets fire to a party building and burns it down.
At any time, situation becomes tense, and then people begin to anticipate violence.
Most times when we have provocative words, provocative songs, they tend to provoke people's anger, and when those things happen, there are always likelihood that violence will erupt.
The youth, the guys that are older aware. Because after 11 years war, the youth then are suffer. The poor one, the mama, the woman, they suffer na this war. And where election they can happen and say for create war, they may make that aware. They no go mix.
Especially with the expectations that all of us believed that there was going to be a very violent electoral process. And there were a couple of political clashes between the two main political parties before the electoral times. And so we saw a huge number of politically motivated conflicts and violence that were being perpetrated. So there was already the mindset that it was going to be a very violent electoral process.
During the political rallies, we see both sides coming out in full force. APC supporters in red doing a march rally. SLPP supporters in green dancing and jubilating.
first of all give credit to the political parties. In my opinion, I think they did a fairly good job in restraining their supporters, especially the leading parties. There were tensions that could have resulted to battles, but the parties did very well in propagating the no violence campaign. And then I also give credit to the youth. We are very aware this time, massively aware, very educated on the issues. They actively participated in the political process. In fact, in some places, they forestalled violence. They ensured that no one this time used them. There are a lot of symposiums, workshops, barre meetings, focus group discussions. All of these we are geared towards promoting a non-violent elections.
Young people especially, whom they always castigate, that are the people who are perpetrating violence, we are very much strong about the process, and it surprisingly came out to be a very successful and a very peaceful electoral process.
We don't conscious of waiting they go on. I mean, the election go peacefully, and the media in general, they play a great role, a big role for sensitize people. At least no violence, no fighting, people learn. And we really think say if we march wide, if we move go before, but for return go behind again.
I think people just remember what it was like here 10, 15 years ago. Some people don't want to go back to refugee camps. Some people don't want to lose their families anymore. And some people are just simply tired of running around for what?
Having had such a successful elections, expectations are high amongst the population that the country's economy will continue to grow, and that jobs will be provided and women and youth will play a greater role towards decision-making.
What we really need to see happen is that the electoral promises are kept. And then, in future elections, people would be more inclined to vote not based on affiliation, tribal or religious, but based on performance.
Young people in Sierra Leone are very crucial decision makers. But for obvious reasons, in Sierra Leone, young people are not considered to be important in decision-making processes.
We should concentrate on providing jobs, especially for the youth, promote education, build the middle-level manpower so the economy of the country will improve.
We are very keen that young people need to be involved in every decision-making at every level, because the population and the state of the youth research has declared that young people owns more than 65% of the national population. And that means that every decision that the country makes needs to reflect the realities of what the young people are living on.
It was a milestone to see that the population was instrumental towards a non-violent campaign, which was in deep contrast to the past, when some businesses and individuals were actually profiting from the conflict.
I would imagine that those people who sell whatever it is that feeds the violence, they will also profit. Some businesses do very well when there is conflict.
Now they make ammunition, supply ammunition to the rebel for let them can destroy it. So that if you want in our country, then go take with mineral there and get them go benefit on them. We now will get with mineral, we left suffer.
It's just the way the international media works. I mean, nobody buys a newspaper that's all nice and rosy stories. People respond to fear factor.
Now that the country has had such a successful election, many private sector investors and mining companies are coming to Sierra Leone.
The peace has attracted a lot of new kind of investment.
And the influx of mining companies also, with the discovery of oil, and the discovery of one of the largest reserves of bauxite in the world, there has been a lot of concentration. You have Western companies And even companies from the East, China specifically, have been investing in billions of dollars in this country. The royalties mining companies pay, the taxes, the equipment coming in, the custom duties.
Yes, we can see double-digit economic growth today, but what will that mean for the environment, for the populations that live in these areas where all of these resources are coming from? What would that mean for them in 20, 30, 40 years' time?
I would dare not to see all these investments have been transformed into authoritative economic benefits for the youth. But there is so much hope, so much prospect, and even the projection of our economy is very encouraging. Even by 2020, we would have a GDP of more than 2 billion United States dollars. These are projections. These are very encouraging. You know, when the news is good, people become optimistic. The proceeds of these mineral resources should be equitably distributed for the benefit of all. In the absence of that, you would always have chaos.
Our economy is really very seriously dependent on extractives.
As you talk to certain people, they think in 5 years' time, Sierra Leone will look like Havana, like some heaven, where you could just order for anything like this, and they come to you. Managing those expectations will be very key. Because if I expect that in 5 years, I'll be a rich man, because my country is producing oil, and after 5 years, I'm poorer than what I was 5 years ago, it's a recipe for chaos. So we have to manage these expectations so people should understand that it's not automatic. Because the economy is booming does not mean it will translate into economic benefits of the ordinary man just like that. It's a process. And sometimes these processes are painfully slow.
We need a lot of things now. We need more electricity, we need more access to rural communities, so we have to do power stations, we have to bring in generators, we have to build roads, we have more cars. I think it's just a general trajectory of economic development as we know it in modern civilizations.
One thing that we as Sierra Leoneans and the international community must support us to do that is to ensure that the extractives are democratically governed.
The question on the minds of many is, will Sierra Leone allow the country to be torn apart again by ethnicity, or will Sierra Leone move towards a national identity?
Tribal and regional will make we come into war again, because salon now we get her. Not to other man get salon. You left here so you go to other man country, you go no say na other man country go. But Sierra Leone now we get her, and we no go sit down a point.
Tribalism is not good. It is poor society. It is poor community. Discrimination not good.
We don't go to 11 years war. Nothing no benefit we. They like today some of who pay them. We support for hand for law get for able educate to picking them. But they like today the world on deteriorate we. I not believe if any kind person dey back or go lack for that to be like this country again. And me go say no, it not go be again.
Sierra Leone has graduated to a position in which one party will never come back to this country. War will never come back to this country, because we are addressing the issues of war. Sierra Leoneans should go beyond optimism. I'm sure we are beyond optimism. The point is we are very determined to succeed. And we'll move on. No one stops us. The train will continue to move until we reach our destination.
Young people are the untapped resources. They have the energies and the strength to transform the society.